The original SEC was established by members of the Australian League of Rights, an extreme right-wing group led by Eric Butler, in the 1980s in Queensland. Its purpose was to lobby for binding voter-initiated referenda. SEC candidate Trevor Perrett won the 1988 Barambah state by-election in Queensland, held after former Queensland Premier Sir Bjelke-Petersen resigned from state parliament in 1987. However, Perrett soon switched to the National Party. By 1989, the SEC leadership was under the influence of the Lyndon LaRouche movement. By 1992, the LaRouche movement had taken full control, renaming the organisational newsletter and moving the headquarters from rural Queensland to a Melbourne suburb, with direct communications links to LaRouche's US headquarters established. League of Rights publications now warn their readers to avoid the SEC, citing attacks on the British royal family for supposed drug connections and LaRouche's criminal convictions. They warn that the LaRouche movement is strongly pro-Republican, and that they have received reports that LaRouche's organisation is being used by the Zionists. In 1996, then Liberal Party MP Ken Aud, often tied to the SEC, was disendorsed by the Liberal Party after using parliamentary privilege to make allegations of involvement in espionage and drug trafficking against a prominent Jewish lawyer and a senior foreign affairs official, using documents that were later found to be forged, supplied to him by the SEC. In the mid-2000s, the party found support from Muslim groups opposed to the detention of suspected terrorists by the United States at Guantanamo Bay detention camp. In 2004, the SEC received the largest contribution of any political party, $862,000 from a central Queensland cattle farmer and former SEC candidate named Ray Gillam. The SEC leader is National Secretary and National Treasurer Craig Ishwood of Melbourne, who has been a SEC election candidate 3 times. Other members of the Ishwood family are also prominent in the SEC. Neeleen Ishwood is the party's national chairman. In 2001, the Citizens Electoral Council published What Australia Must Do to Survive the Depression, that outlines the party's policy to enact development programs, writings by Lyndon LaRouche, and a brief history of how the SEC was eclipsed by Pauline Hanson's One Nation. What Australia Must Do to Survive the Depression also has draft legislation for the establishment of a national bank and state banks for provider loans at 2% or less to agriculture, industry and for infrastructure development, that in 2002 they launched a petition drive to support with a full-page advertisement in the Australian newspaper. Rebuild the country with the People's Bank being a predominant slogan on their election material. In early 2008, the SEC started campaigning for a Bank Homeowners Protection Bill of 2008, calling for legislation in the spirit of the moratorium legislations enacted in the 1920s and 30s by Australian governments. The SEC follows the LaRouche line of skepticism towards the theory of anthropogenic global warming, having lobbied the ABC to screen the film The Great Global Warming Swindle, then packed the audience for a post-program audience discussion with members who made comments about carbon-14, eugenics, Plato's cave and Nazism, referring to fears of global warming as Hitler-Nazi race science. This will destroy Africa. In its campaign literature, the SEC claims to associate itself with a tradition including such Australian figures as the Rev. John Dunmore Lang, King O'Malley, William Guthrie Spence, Frank Anstey, Daniel Dennehy, Jacques Lang, Ben Chifley and John Curtin. The SEC also seeks to associate itself with the bygone tradition of the Australian Labor Party, by which it appears to mean the democratic socialist and protectionist policies abandoned by the ALB since the reforms of Go Whitlam in the 1960s and 1970s,